Building your writing toolkit, design strategies. So formatting your documents with effective design strategies includes the use of shorter sentences and paragraphs, white space, consistent margins, professional fonts, bullet lists, and headings. These elements will not only improve your message's readability and comprehension, but it will also reflect well on your professionalism, organization, and credibility. When you write your business messages, you should generally use short paragraphs. Short paragraphs are usually best because they're easier to read and understand. However, a well-constructed message will usually have a mix of short and longer paragraphs. Sometimes in your opening and closing paragraphs, you might have a short paragraph that is only 1 or 2 sentences long. Short sentences are also helpful if you want to emphasize an important fact or idea. In most business messages, you will have short paragraphs with a maximum of 5 or 6 sentences. In reports, you might have longer paragraphs of up to 8 sentences because the material is more complex and requires more thought development. Now, in terms of flow, sentences should make sense in sequence and sound as though they belong together, and there should only be one main idea per paragraph. Another important design strategy to include in your writer's toolkit is the use of lists. That's where you take a wordy sentence or paragraph and break it down into a lead-in sentence with bullet points or bullet numbers. You can see how much easier it is to read the information on the right-hand side than the left-hand side. A list is a group of at least 3 logically related items. The purpose of a list is to order and emphasize important information. A list breaks up solid blocks of text by adding white space. It puts events and actions into sequential order, like a list of instructions. And it makes concepts easier to understand, remember, and reference. When we make lists, they should be in parallel grammatical structure. Parallel structure is the repetition of a chosen grammatical form within a sentence. When your sentence contains a series of 2 or more items, they must be grammatically parallel. That is, they must be written in the same grammatical form. Use the same pattern of words to show that 2 or more ideas have the same importance. Let's look at this example. College requires us to manage our time, to work independently, and critical thinking. The 3 items in this series are not parallel. 2 are infinitive phrases, to manage, to work, but the third ends in ing and is a noun phrase. To correct the sentence, you must put all items in the same grammatical form. You have 2 choices. You can write, college requires us to manage our time, to work independently, and to think critically. Or you could write, college requires time management, independent work, and critical thinking. Either one would work. So just like when we write sentences, when we create lists, we also have to make them parallel, and they need to be consistent in structure and style. So you can structure your bullets as a list of items, a list of questions, sentence fragments, or even complete sentences, but they must all be the same. Don't mix and match these different types within one set of bulleted list. Now this is a list combining too many styles. Check-in, which is a list item, is the departure time in 5 minutes. That's a question. Ensure you always cross-check the logged passenger list with the original manifest. That's a full sentence. And depress manual break. That's a sentence fragment. So see how the above mixes different types of bullets. It's not easy to read or understand. So this example is much better. In the above, everything is using sentence fragments without any ending punctuation. Depress manual brake. Release emergency brake. Increase power on throttle to 10%. Release manual brake. Sound departure alarm. It's so much easier to read and understand. Now take note that we use numbered lists for the items that represent a sequence or that they have to be in a certain order. And we use bullet points for things that don't have a certain order. They could be in any order. But you can't just have a bullet list on its own. You want to introduce a list with a strong explanatory lead-in that reads logically and grammatically with each point that follows. If your introduction is complete, you will not need to repeat explanatory details in each point. Punctuate the lead-in with a colon if it can be read as a complete sentence, but use no punctuation if the lead-in depends on the point that follows to complete its meaning. So this one, our company has one segment that deals with investing, has another segment that takes care of mortgages, also has leasing operations. There's a lot of duplication in there, and it needs to be simplified. So this one is much better. Our company has 3 key business segments: investing, mortgage operations, and leasing operations. So remember, we just used a bullet list to highlight items that aren't in a certain order. We use numbers when it has to be in that specific order, like instructions. And in terms of punctuation, we want to add end punctuation only if it's a complete sentence. We capitalize the first word of each line. And again, we need to make them parallel. They all need to be in the same grammatical structure. So if they start with a verb, they all should be verbs. If they're nouns, they should all be nouns. So the last design strategy we're going to talk about right now is about adding headings for visual impact. And you can see in this one, it really helps the reader separate the major ideas from the details. And by bolding that, it really draws your eyes to it. And they help a busy reader to skim familiar or less important information. And they also provide a quick preview or review. Headings appear most often in reports, which we'll talk about later, but headings can also improve readability in emails, memos, and letters. So remember to format your documents with effective design strategies, such as shorter sentences and paragraphs, white space, consistent margins, professional fonts, bullet lists, and headings, because that will make it easier for your reader to read and will make you appear very professional.